It's the truth about parenting.
Something needs to be real for us.
The truth is in the raw things that people don't talk about. This journey is not for the weak. Welcome to the Mama Jack podcast. Hi, Michelle. How are you today?
I am good. How are you?
I'm doing good. So, tell us about yourself.
Sure. Well, my name is Michelle Steiner, and I live in Pennsylvania with my husband, Ron, and our two cats, Jack and Sparrow. And I work as a disability writer, speaker, and photographer. And I also work as a paraeducator in a school with students who have learning disabilities and some who have other disabilities as well, and some that don't have that, but they just need a little extra help. And I have a learning disability myself. I was diagnosed with having a learning disability whenever I was in kindergarten. And my teacher saw right away that I was struggling with counting, eye hand coordination, visual perception. Dot to dot pages were a big thing too, that was hard. And I was also struggling socially because I was my parents' first child. So they didn't have a whole lot to base on what development was. So they sent me to kindergarten, even though I had my preschool teacher that said that I probably should have another year. And when I got there, she noticed and they recommended that I get tested for having a learning disability. And sure enough, that I do have one. I had to repeat kindergarten the following year in a different school in our district, and I began to receive specialty services. My parents were super supportive of me growing up. I can just remember they were the ones who explained my learning disability to me in simple, age appropriate terms. And hearing that was really good because a lot of times, I was hearing from my peers that I wasn't smart or others, a lot of other misinformation. So hearing that really helped a lot. I can remember that school wasn't really a struggle for me academically and socially, even after when I had to repeat kindergarten. I can remember just really struggling, and I thought learning was always going to be hard and that I couldn't do it. And I can also remember socially, it was hard too. I had a lot of my peers who bullied me. And when I was young, it wasn't as bad. It got worse as I went throughout school. And I can also remember I had people limit me. I had a learning support teacher tell me that she didn't think I could go to college because of my math difficulties. She thought that I could, uh, trade school would be a better option. But I didn't, listen to that. I went forward with it. Academically, school got a lot easier though. I can remember, they found out really early I could read really well and writing, and that was definitely a path that led me to what I do now, and also to a lot of friends and a lot of people that were great, help through my journey, especially after school. I can remember whenever I was getting picked on a lot, I found another group that met in a neighboring school district, and they were involved with things I like to do, like a lot of art things. I can remember I wrote for their newsletter, and these kids, I didn't go to school with them. So having that was a really great because I could shed a lot of that reputation that I had followed me since I was in kindergarten. And eventually the group didn't no longer met, but I found another writing group whenever I was a teenager. And people were just a couple years or older than I was. And to this day, our group still meets once a month to read each other's stories, and we're involved in each other's lives with birthday parties and weddings and just all the things that, friends do together. And that was a really big turning point for me because I found a lot of that acceptance, and a lot of them were like, "Oh, you should write about having a learning disability." And for years, I didn't want to write about it. And I put that on the side. And I also during that time period, I graduated from high school and I got involved with some agencies that help people with disabilities be able to get jobs, go to college. And I've never been a great test taker. And when I took the evaluate, I had to get evaluated for having a learning disability before I could receive services. And the psychiatrist who evaluated me told me I would not go beyond a community college. And when I went into, but I went forward with it. I found even more stigma when I was in college. I can remember people who use disability accommodations were considered to be unmotivated or getting an unfair advantage. I had a professor that told me that I was going to have limited job choices. So I decided not to use them. It was not a smart decision. My grades really suffered. But luckily, I had a professor that recommended that I used them, at least getting extended test time, and once I used them, I was able to pass her class, did not do well with it, and I was able to pass my other courses as well. After I graduated with an associate's degree in early childhood education, and after graduation, I was able to move out on my own, and I loved having the independence because I'm not able to drive because of my disability, so my apartment was in a central location where I could walk to where I needed to go. I had some temp jobs that I was working with students and I loved it, but I always wanted more for myself. And due to financial reasons, I had to move back in with my mom and dad. And my job was downsizing at the time. During this time, I also thought this is the time to give university a try. And I found a program that had the least amount of math and science possible. They also had disability accommodations and a program that I really liked. Whenever I was able to go back to school, it was a much different experience. I used all the services that they offered. I had a note taker, I had extended test time, and I also had tutoring when I needed help. And most importantly, I advocated for myself. I would go up to my professors and say my name and that I had a learning disability, and these are the services I was going to be using. Most of them were very understanding. You always get a few that just didn't quite get the memo. But I was able to work through it with them, and my grades improved. I made dean's list for a semester, and I was able to graduate with a bachelor's degree despite being told I couldn't do it. After school, it took me a while to find the right job for me. I worked at some places that said they were disability friendly, and it turns out they were anything but that. And eventually, I found the job with working with students as a teacher's aide, and I love it. I just find it so rewarding to be able to help students with their work and retest to them and just show them how to advocate because I know what that feels like. And I've been with my job for about 13 years. And I also turned my passion with writing and photography into a blog and getting things published. I can remember I took that advice that a friend gave me about writing about having a learning disability when I moved into our house and I couldn't unlock the door and I was just really frustrated. And there was a prompt on the Mighty to write about what's a seemingly easy task for other people, but it's really hard for you with your disability. And I wrote that and I got published and I had a really good turnout. A lot of people were really interested and that just encouraged me to write other things and eventually, it also encouraged me to start my own blog where I write about life with a learning disability. I try to do metaphors with nature that people can understand. And I also get to feature my photography on my online store. I, as I'm not able to drive with my disability, I find that I can notice details that other people will miss from sitting in the passenger seat. Sometimes I'll be in the car with my husband and I'll say, "Did you see that?" And he'll say, "No, I'm focused on the road." He's getting a little bit better about that. And I'll get a chance to see a flower or something else that's really neat. And if it's local, I can get a chance to go back and take a picture of that. We're seeing a lot of spring flowers in our area right now. So I'm really enjoying going into walking to different places and taking pictures of that. And I have a little store where I have my photography for sale. I have, journals and prints that are available and some other things as well. And My goal is to be able to encourage, empower, and educate people without learning disabilities.
I love that because I'm a mother of a child with a learning disability
Okay.
and possibly two. We'll see. The one so my son, he was born in July and then he was a COVID baby,
Mhm.
right? Which we know didn't get socialized and all that stuff. So
Right.
he's currently getting held back in pre-K. We're keeping him another year. So he'll turn 5
Okay.
before he goes back into pre-K again, and then he'll turn 6 in July. So it's kind of like he's still with kids his age. But then my daughter, she's younger. She has a genetic condition that causes a delay, a speech delay, delays in pretty much across the board. So
Mhm.
it's definitely close to my heart whenever you're talking about a learning disability and seeing where you're at now is very inspirational. And I think it's going to fill the hearts of many parents with kids with learning disabilities because when they tell you that, you never know what can happen. And it's like, is the kid going to
Right.
be the kid that can't learn anything? Or are they going to be the kid that might need a little extra help? And it's scary. And your parents sound like they did a beautiful job with you and they really looked out for what you needed. And I know in my case, anyways, that's all I'm about. Like just finding what's the best. What treatment can we give her? What therapy can we put him in? Both of them. Like I'm trying to be on top of it as much as possible. But hearing your story is so inspirational and I love it so much. So is your disability attached to a genetic condition or was it just something that popped up?
It was something that
Okay.
popped up as far as I
Okay.
know. Now, it could have been with other family members in the past, but they didn't know a lot of that. So, yeah, it's one of those things that just, yeah, popped
I
up.
mean, even I'm not sure how old you are, but even at your age, I feel like you were really fortunate because a lot of kids, I'm 38, so I'll be 40. I'm not sure how old you are, but I know even in my age group, a lot of kids with learning disabilities were just kind of like all disabilities were put and I do this because a lot of it
Yeah,
we don't consider a lot of this a disability right now. It's just kind of things that you need work with more. Like there are certain traits that kids have that they need to stand or they need to, so we're realizing that now. But when I was
right.
growing up, that wasn't a thing. They were all lumped together, like all those kids. And now I understand it's different, right?
It is very different. I'm in my
Okay.
40s. So I was very lucky that I did get diagnosed at that time because they just had legislation passed a couple years before
Mhm.
that, ensuring that if a student did come in with a disability, that they had to have services that were provided for them. But whenever I had a learning disability that was diagnosed, it was more of an umbrella category, more of a blanket statement rather than very something very specific. They just knew I wasn't going to be a mathematician when I was
Yeah.
5. But I look back and we were all placed in learning support whenever I was in school. And some of my peers, they had behavior issues that were not getting taken care of. And a lot of it was family because of the family background and
Mhm.
trauma, which definitely we're not informed on trauma
Oh,
as much as we are
yeah.
now. And I also know that some of them had, I suspect that some of them had autism because just a lot of the traits of what I see with students now and talking with some of them after school, I can now see that, yeah, we were just all lumped in a
Yeah.
classroom together. And there might have been a life skills group where students with intellectual disabilities that really, um, definitely you could tell that they had that. But for a lot of years, it was just you're all lumped together. Now what we try to do is students are definitely identified. We will know that they have autism, learning disability, other health impairment. I mean, there's 13 different categories we can do, and even if they don't fall into that, with getting an individual education plan, they can still get a written thing of services and some help that they
Yeah.
need. A lot of times, what I see in our district, though, is there's not really a learning support room for a student for a class. Whenever I went to school, we had learning support math. And I can really feel for a lot of the kids that are in basic classes and just trying to keep up. It's really difficult for a lot of them. But they do get support services. A lot of times I get to provide that. I get to read a test aloud to them. I get that chance to do what they need. And I find that really rewarding. And I think it's less of lumping everybody into one category. It's more of trying to figure out what each child needs on an individual
And
level.
that's beautiful. And I bet you it is so
Mhm.
healing for you to be in that position because you get to help kids that are like you know, like that's insane. That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's so just, oh my goodness. It just gave me chills to think about it because yeah, that was you and you're helping many yous like succeed.
And it's like hearing a yeah, it's like hearing a recording of myself. I get a lot of kids to say, "I hate having my learning disability. I hate having my IEP," and I get that chance to tell them it's not a bad thing to have a disability, and it's not a horrible thing that you have an individual education plan. Those things are meant to help you, and all the kids know, "Do not ask me to help you with math. I am unable to do that, and I just am not." And there's been some really touching moments where I get that chance because I know what it feels like to really connect with them. I can remember I had a student this year that in a class and he was really struggling. And I was struggling to help him with some of the work. It wasn't a math class, but it was closely related. And I just thought, why am I here? Why am I doing this? This is just beyond what I can do. And all of a sudden, I heard someone say, "This student is crying." And I turned over and he was really frustrated because he didn't understand it. And I said, "I know how tough math is. I have a math disability. I can't help you with this, but what I want you to, when you're upset, to let me know or you're frustrated, and I'll get you the resources you need." And before I knew it, we didn't have a student that's crying, and he's really thriving in the classroom now, and he can raise his hand and ask a question, and I can give him some of the resources that he needs.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. Oh my goodness. You not only conquered all of the things that people told you you couldn't do. You can't do that. You probably won't go to college, just go to tech school, which I'm not knocking tech school. I was a hairstylist. So like, you know,
Mhm.
I
Oh, yeah.
you knocked it out of the water, girl, and now you're just like you're giving back in such a special way. I love it so much. My mommy heart is just buzzing because I know, like,
Oh,
if there are people out there like you that will be with my children, I feel like I can trust that. And just to know, there's even a chance that one of their helpers in the future will have gone through some of the same things that they have is such a gift because you literally can say, I've been there. I've been in your shoes. I know what you're going through. And there is nothing like that. Like my whole podcast is for people that so they can think, oh my goodness, I'm not the only one. Oh my goodness. Like this happens to other people. I feel heard now. I feel, just relief in the fact that, oh my goodness, I'm not the only one this is happening to because it can get very isolating with a lot of things in life. And I feel
mhm.
like something like that can feel very isolating too, especially like I said, when we were younger, because we're pretty much in the same age group, I would say.
Yeah.
Um, because they lumped you all together. So it was like you weren't the same. And that's all they knew how to do then, and autism really wasn't a thing then. It was, but it was, like, not anywhere close to where it's at now and understanding all the different scales of everything that can happen. So, you have just such a wonderful story. So, in your blog, what do you write about?
I write about a lot of what life is like with having a learning
Mhm.
disability. I'll write about, and I try to compare it with nature analogies. Sometimes I might write about flowers and how having a learning disability has been like the process of of a flower that's blooming, or the transformation that butterfly goes through when they get that chance to develop. And then I'll tie it back into this is my transformation of going from this person that didn't think they could do anything, and I transformed into this. And I try to make things very simple so people can understand it. And that's the main thing that I try to do. I want to give people an idea on what it is because a lot of times people will look at me and say, "Well, you don't look like you're disabled." Or they'll tell me, "Oh, you have a learning disability. You must not be able to read." And just dyscalculia and visual perception and limited hand dexterity are some things that people just don't really
Mm.
understand.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I understand them because I'm seeing that in my children right now. So you are
Mm.
understood by me 100%. And oh my
Thank you.
goodness, that is so beautiful. I'll have to, did you put your blog in the show notes?
No, but I can do
Okay.
that.
So
Yes.
make
Let me
sure,
do
make
that.
sure you send it to me because I'm going to put it in the show notes so people can check it out.
Okay. Sounds
I
good.
want to make sure everybody sees all the
Yeah.
beautiful things you're doing. So,
Oh, thank
if
you.
you could say something to all the parents with kids that have just straight up learning disability, like let's just say that they don't know how bad it is, they don't know how, like, what the path is to their child, what would be your advice for the parent?
My advice would be not to give up on their child. That is the main thing. My parents never gave up on me, and that made all the difference. And they also advocated for me. And I think that advocating is so important. I went through whenever I was in school, students did not attend their IEP meetings. But now we see kids that might start attending them when they are in middle school or high school. But my mom and dad, before they would go to a meeting, they would say, "Hey, we're going to your IEP meeting. Is there anything you want us to bring up? Is there anything that you want us to talk about?" And my parents would go there and they would advocate on my behalf and express what concerns I had, what my future goals were. I think that was really important when we were doing post secondary with the transition planning. And they would get back to me. They would be honest that they would say, "Okay, if you want to go to college, you're probably going to have to take this class." And it was very honest, and that helped me, and then also gave me the skills I needed to advocate. And I would also tell my another thing my parents did was they focused on my strengths, and that's what I would advise a lot of parents to do too, what I was good at. I'll never forget when my dad saw that I wrote a dinosaur story when I was in 2nd or 3rd grade. He said, "Wow, this is really good." And whenever I heard that, that just gave me a lot of encouragement. That started me on wanting to write. And I thought, I am good at something because before then I thought I'm not good at anything. And when I heard that, that just gave me a lot of encouragement. And my parents read to me every night. So, and that helped me to have a cultivated a love for reading and for writing. And also, when things got really hard, I could escape to another world with my books and with my journal. And that has helped me to find my
I
voice.
love that so much. I love that so much. Is there anything else that you wanted to share?
I would just love to encourage people that have disabilities or parents that have, you know, children with them. Definitely to not give up and to keep looking for different strategies to be able to help themselves or somebody else. And try to remember that success doesn't always come in the package you expect, but something sometimes even better.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was a
Thank you for
it
having
was a
me.
pleasure. It truly was. I love your story. Like I said, it's so encouraging and inspiring. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome to the end of another episode of the Mama Jack Real Raw Parenting Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Remember, parenting is a journey filled with ups and downs, and it's okay to make mistakes along the way. The Mama Jack Podcast is here to provide you with support, guidance, and real life stories from fellow parents who are navigating the challenges of raising children. If you have any questions, topics you'd like me to cover, or stories you'd like to share, please reach out to me. I love hearing from my listeners and incorporating your experiences into future episodes. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Podpage, all under the Mama Jack. TheMamaJac. Thank you for tuning in. Remember, you're not alone in this journey, and together we can create a supportive community of real, raw parents. Stay tuned for more episodes filled with laughter, tears, and everything in between. Until next time, keep being the amazing parent that you are.